You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. The Options Insider Radio Network is sponsored by Fidelity Investments. Fidelity's Option Trade Builder tool can help you confidently build an options trade in 3 simple steps. Just choose a strategy, select a contract, and then review the benefits and risks of the trade. Learn more about Option Trade Builder at fidelity.com/options. Options trading entails significant risk and is not appropriate for all investors. Certain complex option strategies carry additional risk. Before trading options, contact Fidelity Investments by calling 800-544-5115 to receive a copy of the characteristics and risks of standardized options. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE SIPC. Bitcoin, Ether, Ripple, Litecoin, and more. Cryptocurrencies and other digital assets are taking the financial world by storm. This exploding market provides everything a savvy trader needs: volatility, volume, and liquidity, provided you know how to find it. That's where we come in. Welcome to the Crypto Rundown. Each week, we'll break down the latest trading activity, trends, and developments on everything from coins to tokens, futures, and even OTC options. If it's moving the crypto markets, then you'll find it on the Crypto Rundown. The Crypto Rundown is brought to you by Akuna Capital. Known as the new wave in tech and trading, Akuna is a leading derivatives market maker in traditional asset classes. As one of the first trading firms to make markets on Bitcoin futures, Akuna is also proud to be an innovator in the cryptocurrency space. Through a collaborative flow of knowledge between developers, quants, and traders, Akuna designs and implements their own low-latency technologies, trading strategies, and mathematical models. To learn more about our rapidly growing firm, please visit akunacapital.com. Now it's time to dive into the exploding world of cryptocurrencies and digital assets. It's time for the Crypto Rundown.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Crypto Rundown, the program here on the old Options Insider Radio Network, where we break down the amazing, moving, constantly on the go world of crypto trading, of course, with Bitcoin, but also some of the Litecoins out there, or should I say some of the altcoins out there, including Litecoin, as well as all the derivatives and everything else that's going on out there. My name is Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as, of course, from the ever exciting, at least we hope so, Options Insider Radio Network. Got a little bit of a flipping of the script here. Today we're planning to bring you a great guest in the old crypto hot seat, but unfortunately it's that time of year. People come down with flus and all sorts of other stuff all the time, so we're going to have to put a pin in our crypto hot seat guest for this week. Hopefully we'll bring you some good stuff. Been a lot of great guests on this show already. We'll have more coming to you in coming episodes. Meanwhile, though, we're just going to dive right into it then and get right into the Bitcoin breakdown.
It's time to explore the latest trading activity, trends, and developments across the world's leading crypto market. It's time for the Bitcoin Breakdown.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Bitcoin Breakdown, the portion of the show where the name kind of says it all. We break down what the heck's going on in the world's leading crypto marketplace. That is, of course, Bitcoin. Could come in all different flavors, could come in your old BTC, could come in the futures, maybe some of the options, all sorts of other fun stuff. But we'll kick it off. You know, we've been talking for a while here on the show. When is crypto, when is Bitcoin in particular really going to feel the love? When is the worm going to turn? We were talking on the last program about how it was in the longest protracted bear market in its history. So a lot of different things that have kind of been fueling the bears recently, and coming into last show, we were still kind of feeling that narrative. We were testing the lows at showtime. It was around the low 3,400 level, and it seemed like, the narrative now was we're going to test new lows, even though there were some rays of hope, like you mentioned on the last show, for the bulls. Of course, the prospect of the halving coming up, maybe that'll be a little bit of a turnaround. Also, maybe some more of these dark accounts that haven't traded too much, springing to life. Maybe that typically in the past has been a bullish sign. So maybe all that could mark a little bit of a turnaround. That's exactly what we saw over the past week since our last show. We saw Bitcoin kind of feeling the love, a rally ho mode. We saw the big move back last Friday, the 8th of February, gapping up to 37.11. That's the highest it's been since the middle of January, right around the 19th level or so. I ended that day on Friday up nearly 8%. Again, single day rise since late December as well. And of course, over the course of the week, it was up about 7%. So not a bad week. Another one of the near-term record books, at least, for the biggest weekly rise since mid-December, when things really started rocking and rolling again out there. Of course, last week, this time, we were talking right around, or were our levels here for this time last week, up nearly $200. We're at a little bit north of 3,400, so up nearly 200. Coming into showtime, we're at about 35.86. Bitcoin settling off a little bit, about 0.5% right now, off about 19 handles on the day out here, but still a nice rally. So the bulls out there maybe getting a little bit of ammo back in their quiver, in their holster, for a little bit of upside. Also, it marks a big move from the low set back in January of 33.22, a substantial move on that front. Also of interest, people like to watch the volumes out there, and some of these recent moves haven't had a ton of volume. That wasn't the case with Friday's spike. Volumes jumped about 54, almost 55%, pushing 8 billion out there. So a very active day. That's the first time we've seen, again, volume surpass the 7 billion level since back in the nadir for a lot of products, including the broad equities and indeed some crypto, back on Christmas Eve, December 24th, one of the biggest numbers we've seen in close to 3 months out there as well, which is, I think, interesting for a lot of our partners out there, speaking, and the listeners out there as well. Speaking of what's going on with the products out there, we like to look, of course, not just at the old cash Bitcoin out there, the physical product you can go out there and get, but also the futures out there. And we have seen interesting volume out there in the CME Bitcoin futures as well. Interesting week out here. Speaking of our partners on the show, folks at Akuna over there, busy trading it up. They'll be on the show again next week, but they made some interesting points, seeing how they've been watching the term structure out there in the Bitcoin futures for some time over there at CME. And they noted the futures have been at a predominant and surprising discount for a long time to the physical. And now we're starting to see that gap narrowing substantially, particularly over the last week. So usually you might see the physical kind of do its own thing. The futures maybe a little bit slower to react. This time, last week, we saw them moving pretty aggressively and actually tightening that gap quite a bit. So all of you out there who have been slinging the futures, maybe that's an interesting note, something to watch. Today, coming into the showtime, we saw that Feb future on CME hovering exactly at 3,600, off about 15 handles. Decent volume on the tape today as well, about 5,000 contracts. Remember, that's a 5x coin, so you're talking 25,000 on the net coin side out there. So interesting volume out there in the CME product line out there as well. Also worthy of note out there, making news over the past week out here in Bitcoin land. A lot of attention has been focused on the exchange side and what ICE is doing with Bakkt. That's, of course, their effectively sister, daughter, spin-off company, call it what you will. The ICE is their main investor in Bakkt, but it is effectively a separate company, and they do have some interesting investments, including from Microsoft's venture fund and from Starbucks. So maybe bringing some interesting new players into the crypto and the financial space. So they were talking about some of their expenses on their conference call, and one that leapt to mind a lot of people in the crypto space is how much they're planning to spend over the coming year for Bakkt. They're planning to spend somewhere around 20 to 25 million in terms of getting all that up to speed and running. That's, of course, on the heels of raising quite a bit of money, nearly 200 million in a round to fund and grow this Bakkt platform, which, again, they do probably plan to eventually spin off at a later stage. So a lot of investment coming in on the front of this new backed product / exchange kind of hybrid, call it what you will. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on in the crypto exchange space. In fact, our guest today was supposed to be from a crypto exchange, and there's quite a few of those springing up these days. So we hope to have a lot more of them rotating through the program in the near future to kind of give you a little bit of a taste of what's going on in that world, what products are exciting, what products are coming, cash settled, physically settled. Physically, that's a big one there. A lot of people are working on that front as well on the derivative side. So should be a lot of interesting stuff going on there as well. Speaking of interesting stuff, people are still crunching the numbers from a very tumultuous and turbulent 2018 in the world of Bitcoin and some of the interesting accounts. Twitter, always a good source for info out there on all things financial. There were interesting account. I think this was Satoshi Capital Research. So I like the name there. Interesting stuff. They were talking about the total volume that was traded for 2018. Again, Bitcoin, most of it measured in the volume that's changing hands as opposed to contract sizes or contract amounts. And we're seeing about 2.2 trillion changing hands total in 2018. And they compared it to some other products, usually in the FX space, maybe not some of the household names you like to trade, certainly not a Euro USD, but still some products of note. They say that's more than the traded volume for the Bulgarian lev and right behind the Chilean peso. It's also 4x the volume that was traded in 2017, which was about $858 billion. And so remember, that's in value now. So towards the end of the year, that value was dramatically less than what it was at the beginning of the year. So that should show that there still was some interest in moving some net contracts throughout the course of 2018. Meanwhile, though, let's keep on rolling. I know you guys like to hear about some other products as well. I know you guys also have some questions, so let's get to them. But first, let's dive on into the altcoin universe.
It's time to move beyond Bitcoin and find out what's moving the rest of the crypto marketplace. It's time to boldly venture into the altcoin universe.
All right, everybody, welcome to the altcoin universe, the portion of the program where we break down everything else that isn't Bitcoin out there. Let's start looking at the top 10 for market cap coming into showtime. Number one, of course, I said it, not going to talk about Bitcoin, but you kind of can't avoid it when you're talking the market cap story, because it still is number one by a long shot, with a little bit less there these days, but still a decent amount. It's about 62, almost $63 billion. Number two, interesting little switcheroo going on number two and number three, which we're going to talk about in a minute. Number two, good old Ether coming in about $12.5 billion. Number three, our former number two, XRP, Ripple, coming in at about 11.92, just shy of 12 billion. Number four, EOS, coming in about 2.8, drops off cliff pretty aggressively between number three and number four, with about 12 down to not even 3. Then number 5, Litecoin, with about 2.5 billion. Number 6, Bitcoin Cash, 2.12 billion. Number 7, old friend Tron, floating around there a little bit north of 1.5 billion. Number 8, Stellar, a little bit shy of 1.5 billion. Number 9, Cardano, with about a little bit north of 1 billion. And then we get down into truly the lower numbers with Neo, number 10, shy of a billion, about 800 million at that point. Then it really continues to fall off pretty much exponentially from there. But yeah, the big story in the altcoin world this past week or so has been kind of the flip-flop we saw out there between ETH and XRP, kind of doing a little bit of an interesting dance. We saw a big spike in Ether going out this week. I mean, last time on the show, we were talking about it at right around the 106, a little bit shy of the 107 level. Coming into showtime this week, we saw a big spike getting up there north, right around that 120 level, coming off a little bit into showtime now, about 119.40 or so, but still an impressive move over the past week out there in ETH. And of course, we also saw XRP surrendering a little bit of that value as well. Again, contributing to why that was moving down to the number 3 spot. It was a little bit north of that 30 cent level, about 32.5, now coming in a little bit shy of 30, about 0.298 out there, off about a cent today, actually. So interesting stuff out there in good old XRP. And yeah, it's interesting to watch these altcoins jockey for position, because there is a little bit of a controversy over how much of a role these play in driving and moving the price of Bitcoin. We had an interesting study on the show not too long ago talking about how the growth and of interest in altcoin has effectively maybe neutered Bitcoin a little bit and maybe contributed to some of the sell-off. So there's some interesting mindsets out there. Some groups out there have their coin, have their token, have their product of choice, and that's really where they're invested. That's really what they want to see surpass all others. And then there's others out there who say we need to grow the ecosystem, and so a product like Bitcoin maybe should be first and foremost, and some of these others maybe take a little bit of a back seat. And of course, there's adherents and proponents for each of those out there. So it's kind of fun to see where everyone draws the battle lines in the altcoin world. But this week, at least, the battle lines changing a little bit. ETH climbing its way up to number 2. Good old Litecoin also had a bit of a move this week as well. Last week we were talking about it. It was shy of the 34 level, about 33.87 coming into showtime today. I had about 42.33, off a little bit today, off about 3.5 handles. So I had got up to about 45.46 out there throughout the week. So that's quite a movement for Litecoin as well. And that kind of blows the doors off the range we were talking about on the last show. There, it seemed like it had been pretty much range bound between effectively 34 on the downside and about 36 on the upside for pretty much the better part of the last month, since January 13th, this last week. Kind of blew the doors off the upside of that range. So it'll be interesting to see how much Litecoin can move and climb up that chart if it continues to rally. Of course, it has a bit of a ways to go to catch up with, not too far. It's only got about $1/3 billion it needs to climb to take the number 4 spot, currently at number 5. Then it's got a ways to go to number 3 to catch up to Ripple. It's got to go all the way up to about 12 billion. Don't see that happening anytime soon, but still interesting movements out here in the Litecoin, or I should say the altcoin. I've got Litecoin on the brain today. I don't know why. On the altcoin universe out here. Fascinating stuff, and I'm certainly looking forward to seeing more things out here slinging and trading over the course of the coming week. But you guys are hitting us up all the time. Great questions, great queries. Let's get to some of those right now with your crypto questions.
You've got questions about crypto. Who doesn't? It's time to find out the answers to your crypto questions.
All right, everybody, time to turn the tables on you guys. Again, a little bit of a truncated show with no guests. We're going to try to squeeze it in a little bit under 30 minutes here for you. Get you in, get you out, get you on your way here. But we want to make sure you guys get some love here. Let's start things off. R5Net, he keeps asking every week, what do you think about Tron? What do you think about Tron? Well, it's interesting. You know, we have touched on it a little bit on previous shows. I got to mention it now. It's in our top 10, number 7 out there, with about 1.6 billion in market cap out there. So it's kind of holding steady on there, maybe coming online a little bit. I was hoping to get some good guests on who could speak to what's going on uniquely in that marketplace coming down in the near future. So I think I'm going to hold off on that question until we can maybe do a little bit of a deeper dive in it right now, because it isn't really the most high volume product out there. Not a lot to sink our teeth into so far on the trading side, but it'll be interesting, I think, to see in the coming weeks and months as the altcoin universe continues to evolve. Here's a comment here from T Bisc. He wants to know, or he's chiming in actually. He says, I heard your comments about Bitmex last show. I think your concerns about using a VPN are overblown. I haven't encountered any issues. Well, I'm glad to hear that, T Bisc. We had other people chiming in with similar sentiments. And I mentioned that on the show. I said, your mileage may vary, and I've heard great things from certain people, and I'm glad to hear that. I certainly hope that continues. What I just said, someone asked in for my opinion, I just said I would not be comfortable having a significant amount of capital exposed like that on a platform with this effectively sort of Damocles hanging over it that they could cut off at any time. Now, whether they would take those assets or not, that's open. They probably wouldn't, but they would still liquidate your account. And on a big moving trading day, that could be a terrible thing, obviously. So that's not my preferred relationship to have with the broker, where they could effectively shut me down at any time, because I am technically violating their terms of service by using the platform. So not my preferred MO, and I wouldn't recommend it to anyone out there, but I'm glad to hear you're having a great experience. I hope that's the case for all of you who are out there doing it. Not my MO, and nor would I recommend it to listeners of this program to go try it when there are so many other platforms. They can go out there, they could trade on an actually listed, litigated, regulated type of venue, and they could see exactly what's going on. They can have access to their funds, and there's no concerns about having to dial in through some sort of alternate means to try to effectively do an end run around their terms of service. All right, Chatbot wants to know, doesn't it seem like most of these big crypto, he puts exchanges in quotes, like Kraken and Coindesk are really just brokers in disguise? Yeah, I would agree with that quite a bit. In fact, I've made that point. I've heard others make that at recent conferences as well. They term themselves exchanges because it's kind of a loose world, shall we say, from a regulated front and a regulatory front. So you can kind of call yourselves whatever you want. And doesn't it sound cooler to be an exchange than it does a broker? But you're right. They're onboarding clients. They're opening customers. They're acquiring new customers. They're providing access to products. They're providing actual transactions and, front end and all the other stuff, customer support that a broker does. So their biggest effective function is as a broker. The actual exchange portion, that's even come under fire, obviously, in recent months with talk about some of the volumes being reported by these venues to be inflated. There's a lot of self-trading going on. So the function of an exchange, which is to provide a core venue for liquidity in a particular underlying asset, you can probably take issue with how well these different venues meet that definition. I mean, we had a lot of guests on this network over the past year that definitely fit more in the pure exchange box than a typical broker. But you're right. Most of these big venues out there, they call themselves exchanges. In reality, they're pretty much brokers. And eventually, I think the space will awaken to that. The terminology will shift. But right now, it sounds cooler. There's no one telling them they really can't. And they do have volume going up on their platform. And for a while, many of them were kind of the only game in town, so they could kind of do and say what they wanted. We'll see if that continues. Maybe some of the regulators might come in with their own definitions of what an exchange means in the crypto space. So it'll be interesting to see. But right now, I think you're spot on, Chatbot. They pretty much are brokers in disguise. I don't think there's even really that much disguise going on. They're brokers. They just don't like to call it that. All right. TokenMania wants to know, when can we expect more physically settled crypto contracts coming down the pike? Particularly interested in ETH and Litecoin. Yeah, that's, again, we're looking to more guests of the show. There are a lot of exchanges launching in this space right now and coming online as we speak with interesting new products, including in the ETH and others, some of them in the physically settled side of the camp. So yeah, there will be more coming. We plan to have them on this program to pretty much put your question, TokenMania, and everyone else's questions to them. What are you guys doing? What's going on? Who's supporting your platform? What products are you offering? What kind of depth and liquidity can we expect? All the typical things, custody, wallets, cybersecurity, all that fun stuff. We plan to get into all of that in the future on this show. But yes, the short answer is yes, we expect more of those coming online in the near future, including from some pretty big platforms that have some pretty big cash and big names behind them. So that's definitely seems to be the trend going forward. People want some sort of physically settled, physically delivered type crypto contract. So look for more of those coming. TokenMania. All right, and we got time here for one more on our quick version of the crypto rundown. Let's see. Tim Michaels gets the dubious honor of being last up here. Tim wants to know, has the recent pop in Bitcoin caused any changes to the call skew for Bitcoin options? Well, great question, Tim. It kind of speaks to the heart and soul of this show. We want to get into not just what's going on in the cash underlying and all the other good stuff out there in the physical crypto, but also in the derivatives, in the options. And so like I mentioned, our friends over there at Akuna have been trading it up quite a bit, but I did take your question and I passed it along to them. I said, hey guys, listeners want to know what's going on in the skew. What are we seeing? Obviously, we had a big move in Bitcoin over the course of the past week. And they wrote back and said, surprisingly, the skew still relatively unchanged from where it was the week before and from before Friday's move. You would think in a lot of other big, deep, liquid listed products, a big move like Friday's 7-8% gap up to the upside, that would cause you to have a little bit of change out there, particularly in a product that's a little bit less liquid. You would not just move up the skew, you probably would gap up and the skew would probably change. It would shift as a result. But they're saying that they haven't seen that at all. The skew is still unched. So that shows that even maybe that's a little bit of a sign for the bears out there that the demand isn't pouring in right now for the calls on the upside there. In Bitcoin, usually, again, if you saw a lot of demand for upside, that skew would have shifted. We would see that reflected in the call skew. They also said their 3-month vol levels still relatively unched, pretty much in the mid to high 50s right now out there. So big move out there on the Bitcoin and indeed the crypto front over the past week, but surprisingly and maybe interestingly, not a lot of response in the derivative space, which I think is fascinating in and of itself. All right, everybody, that music means we've come to the end of a flu-shortened version of the crypto rundown. I hope you guys enjoyed. We hit on the main products. We're going to get more guests rotated on into future shows. Don't you worry. But fascinating stuff. Keep your questions coming. Keep your comments coming. Keep everything coming. We love to hear. You guys are the reason we launched this show, quite frankly. We wouldn't do it without you. You guys are hitting us up forever. We want crypto. We want crypto. We want crypto. And we're trying to bring a fun array of different guests that can speak to different areas of the space, like we mentioned, the exchanges, or the quote-unquote brokers, call them what you will. A lot of the guests we have are following on the exchange side of that equation, but we'll have some of the quote-unquote brokers in here as well, the trading firms, obviously, all of the above, researchers, new platforms, all kinds of good stuff going on. Lending, we just had that on the show recently as well, so what's going on with the institutions, what's going on with the retail, trying to break it all down for you in a fun, quick, easily digestible format here on the Crypto Rundown. So keep those questions coming. Maybe guest suggestions. Maybe you have a guest you want us to feature on the show. Let us know. Hit us up. You know where to find us at Options on most of the major social media platforms, or indeed via questions@theoptionsinsider.com. Grab our mobile app. It's all there. You can join us live typically every Monday, 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern. Next week is a holiday, of course, so we'll have to see what we do there. We may have to move it. So the live times are still a little bit fluid, but of course you can get it on demand on your platform of choice whenever you like. Thanks again for joining us, for sending in your questions, all the other fun stuff you guys do to keep us going, and we'll see you back here next week for more of the Crypto Rundown.
The preceding program was a production of the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions@theoptionsinsider.com.